in good faith, I cannot tell another adult how they should feel about Social Security. And I'm also not telling you to worry about having 35 years of work. Work as long as you want to or you can. And let the chips fall where they may. It'll sort itself out in the wash. Plenty of time. I do the laundry at home. Plenty of times one of my kids has mentioned that they lost a couple of bucks that somebody gave them. It's always in the washing machine, and it always goes straight into my pocket. So, 35 years of work to be eligible. Well, 35 years is what we use to. Brandon, how do I find out what my benefit amount's going to be from Social Security? Before your birthday, you would get a statement made. Obviously, I'm way too young. So I can go online, pull up my statement to see how much I would get, when I'm older, if I became unable to work, or how much my loved ones would get in the event of my hopefully untimely passing. If you pass, a fictitious version. I mean, we're all, let's keep it somewhat lighthearted. A person unfortunately passes away. That opens up the door of eligibility for certain family members. For the children, the criteria, and hold this unnecessarily. The children, the criteria is the same as it would be if the parent was alive and collecting benefits. So the child of a late worker, if not married in most cases, can be eligible if they're under the age of 18, 19, still in high school, not college, or if the child is at any age that they were disabled before they turned 22. The surviving spouse, the widow or widower, remember, once again, like Carol Burnett, it's a gender-neutral term. The surviving spouse would need to be at least 60 years old or 50 and disabled. Unless you guys have children that are under the age of 16 or children that are disabled before turning 22. This is highlighted in the Understanding the Benefits booklet. Starts on page 12. Talks about survivor benefits. So you're no longer with us. You have a spouse who's surviving spouse who's at least 60 years old, or at least 50 and disabled, or of any age, as long as you guys have children under the age of 16 or children that are disabled before turning 22. 3 things to be aware of when it comes to survivor benefits. Number 1, as a surviving spouse, you can be remarried to someone else and qualify for benefits as long as your new marriage took place after you turned 60 or 50 if you're disabled. Second, you can be divorced.
Say that again. So after you turn 60, you can get remarried.
Right, so we're talking about a situation where you want to apply for benefits on the record of a late spouse or late ex-spouse.
That's deceased.
Yes, they're no longer with us.
Okay.
You can be remarried to someone else and still qualify for benefits on the record of that late spouse, as long as your new marriage took place after you turned 60 or 50 if you are disabled. But we all know Cupid's arrow strikes you when it strikes you. Let's say you got married at 22, you lost your loved one at 39, you hit the dating scene again at 45, you fell in love, and he or she or they popped the question to you at 51. They're probably not going to wait 9 years. So get married. But just understand that marriage, since it took place before you turned 60, will prevent you from being eligible for benefits on that late spouse's record until that new marriage is no longer in place through divorce or death.
So once they get divorced, they can go back to the other guy and get his money.
Because if the second marriage is no longer in place through divorce or death, you could potentially be eligible on that late spouse's record. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, understand, it's a free country, and do whatever, I always tell people all the time, within the confines of the law, do whatever's in your best interest. I'm on disability, but I want to go back to work. If work is in your best interest, if whatever, satisfaction and financial gain and mental gain you get from that job, take the job. But just let us know. And it will potentially affect your check. But as adults, most of the decisions we make are always going to be pros and cons. Back to my joke about the lottery. I guess the only decision I have to make is, do I want ongoing payments or I want it all at once? I want all at once. Don't want to be known, I don't want to be anonymous. You'll never hear from me again. So, pluses and minuses, pros and cons of any decision that you make. But if you want to work, go back to work. So understand there are potential ramifications of that decision. I felt like that was a soapbox moment, so I'm going to get off. Finally, as a survivor, once again, we're on page 12 of the Understanding the Balance booklet. If your marriage ended because of the passing of an individual, in most cases, you only need to be married for 9 months. If you were not legally able to get married because of the laws of your particular state, it can be a shorter period of time. Let's recap all that. That was a lot to digest. That was going to the breakfast buffet before Thanksgiving dinner. It was a lot to sort of have in your gut. So, you want to apply for benefits in the record of someone else, and that someone else is no longer with us. How did the marriage end? Because that's going to dictate how long you needed to be married. If the marriage ended because of divorce, you needed to be married for 10 consecutive years. If the marriage ended because of their passing, in most instances, 9 months. Can I be married to someone else? Yes, depending on when you got remarried. 60 or 50 and disabled. Okay? So, all the survivor benefits. We have a benefit payable. I've been in agency for 19 years. I don't recall ever seeing this application before, but it's for parents. You're the parent and at least 62 years old. One of your adult children has passed away. But before they passed away, they were providing at least half of your support. So you are a parent receiving benefits because of the work record of your late adult child. Last but not least, and it's also, I think this is on page 13. Yes. There's a one-time lump sum death payment of $255 that can be paid in most cases to the surviving spouse or dependent children. One-time payment, $255. Now, Brandon, what about working? I want to apply for my retirement benefits. I want to apply for my survivor benefits. Can I work? Sure. Part-time or full-time? Can I work full-time? Can I work part-time? The thing is, those are non-concepts. Full-time, part-time, that doesn't mean you can choose. How much money are you going to make? You might be full-time at a big box store making less money than somebody who's working part-time is at an investment company. You know what I'm saying? Like 40 hours over here at minimum wage versus 30 hours over here making $50 an hour, that person's still making more money. So, once again, the whole full-time, part-time situation, don't even worry about it. If you're looking at the update fact sheet, which once again, if you're here in this room, it's on the table, that's all on my right, left, over there, the table's over there. And if you're online, just go to our website, ssa.gov, scroll where it says publications, click on publications and look for update. It states earnings limits. So we say, yes, you can work and earn a certain amount and collect benefits. These numbers usually change every year. We usually get the new numbers in October or so. So as of now, I have no idea how much money a person can work and earn and still receive retirement, survivor, spousal, and children's benefits. Past this year, I don't know. I don't want to guess. Everyone's going to fall into one of 3 categories. If right now, if you're already at your full retirement age or older, you can make whatever you want to. 10,000, 100,000, not yourself out. As of the first day of the month of your full retirement age, there's no earnings limit upon you when it comes to retirement, spousal, survivor benefits. If you are not going to reach your full retirement age this year, as this chart shows, the allowable limit for 2022 is $19,560. That means, let's say at the end of the year I'm going to be 64 years old. That means I'm not going to be at my full retirement age in 2022. If I wanted to apply for Social Security retirement benefits and still work, the limit of how much I can make and still collect all of those checks is going to be $19,560. That is gross earned wages as an employee or net profits from self-employment. Please do not give us how much you're gonna get from your stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, mutual funds, pension plans, lottery winnings, annuities, adherences, church bingo, your cryptocurrency.
That's earned income though, right? Not unearned income. Okay.
What did your job pay you? What are the profits from your business? That's all we care about. So you may say, well, how does Social Security know how much I'm gonna make?
So we're unearned.
You don't. You tell us. When you apply for benefits, it is your responsibility to give us your best guess estimate of how much you are going to make. And we're going to pay you based on that estimate. For every $2 that you expect to make above that limit, we would hold back $1 in benefits. Brandon, what if I'm going to reach my full retirement this year? Then the limit is much larger. It's $51,960. So let's say your full retirement age is going to be in October. That means as of October 1st, you can make whatever you want to and collect benefits. It is a non-issue for us. As long as you're not going to make more than $51,960 before you reach that age, we can conceivably start paying you now. So when people say, well, can I work and collect benefits? The answer is yes, you can work. There's certain limits and certain circumstances, but yes, you can work, receive money from your job, and collect benefits. I don't like telling people what to say, but I would probably stop asking us about full-time and part-time. Because once again, we don't know how much money you're making at the job. And I know that there have been situations where, because of time constraints, you weren't able to have sort of a fully fleshed out conversation. And I'm not saying that you need to be talking to somebody for 4 or 5 hours. But if someone said, hey, can I work part-time and get Social Security? Someone would say, yeah. But if you pull back, I don't know what that means to you because I don't know what part-time means. You just like when it comes to applying for benefits, someone may say, is it hard to apply online? Not to be a jerk, I don't know. Because I don't know what's difficult for you in your situation. My parents applied online for benefits, but that's a bad example because they were already on it, but I don't know if my grandparents would have applied online. But the technology wasn't there, and I assume people of my generation going forward, we'll just push the chip in our head and we'll be on benefits, if you understand. So, you can work and receive benefits. So those are our sort of age-based benefits, retirement, survival, spousal. As far as disability goes, as I mentioned before, there are 2 main disability programs. Disability benefits, sometimes known as SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, or SSDB. It's a work-based program with the work and payment of the system to be eligible for benefits. Then there's Supplemental Security Income, or SSI, federal needs-based program for people that are blind, disabled, or old age of 65 with limited income, limited resources. Let's say you're already collecting benefits, or a loved one is already collecting benefits, and you're not sure which one of the programs they're getting. When do they get their check? SSI checks are traditionally paid on the first of the month, unless the first falls on a weekend or a holiday. Here, so for example, I was looking at this earlier with a colleague of mine because 2020 was a bit of an outlier year because a lot of the first of the months seem to fall on weekends or holidays. So most people didn't get most of their checks. So for example, this year, if I'm on SSI, I know that I'm going to get my check on the first of the month. Well, that'll never be New Year's Day because it's always going to be a holiday. So the January 1st check would have been paid on New Year's Eve. The February check, February 1st was a Tuesday. March 1st was a Tuesday. April 1st was a Friday. May 1st was a Sunday. So that check would have been paid on April 29th, that Friday. June 1st is a Wednesday. July 1st is a Friday. August 1st is a Monday. September 1st is a Thursday. October 1st is a Saturday. That check will be paid on September 30th. November, you're fine. December, you're fine. So if you know someone who usually gets their check the first of the month or a couple of days early, they're getting SSI. But if a person gets their check on any other day regularly, then they're getting either retirement, survivor, spousal disability benefits. Social Security payments usually come on the 3rd of the month or the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th Wednesday. We went to something called payment cycling in the spring, summer of '97, where checks started to be paid on Wednesdays based on the person's birthday. If your birthday falls between the 1st and the 10th, you get your check on the 2nd Wednesday of the month in most instances. If your birthday is the 11th through the 20th, you're paid on the 3rd Wednesday. If your birthday is the 21st through the end of the month, you're paid on the 4th Wednesday of the month. Once again, unless that day happens to be a weekend or federal holiday, my dad gets his Social Security checks on the 4th Wednesday of the month, but every so often, that's going to be Christmas Day, so he'll get his checks the day before. Finally, you may have somebody who gets a check on the 1st and the 3rd. That means that person's getting both Social Security and SSI. So it's really easy to sort of work backwards. If you know someone, you're helping someone who's getting benefits, how many checks do they get per month and when do those checks get paid? Because what happens is sometimes people may wait for their bank to mail them that statement to reconcile their checkbook. I'm a little retentive. My wife works at a bank, so I'm always checking the account. Not maliciously, just want to make sure did that hit. I didn't overpay for that. I don't remember tipping that person that much. That's just me. But some people wait. They want to be more analog and they want to wait for the statement to get mailed to them. Well, the problem is, since the 1st can so easily fall on a weekend, there legitimately may not be a month in which you get your SSI check because you got 2 the month before. So, just to be clear with that. So, what are the basic frameworks regarding these 2 different programs? Or what does Social Security mean by disabled? It should be in our disability book. It's on page, okay, so page 1 kind of gives the basic framework of our definition of disability. So the grade book would be page 1, the SSI book. Would it get the same sort of general definition? No. All right, so what does it mean by being disabled? For Social Security, you have a condition, medically determinable condition. It can be physical, mental, psychological. It's going to keep you from working in a substantial gain. And this is from the perspective of an adult. It means you have a medically determinable condition, physical, mental, psychological. It's going to keep you from working at a substantial gainful level for at least 1 year or eventually end your life. We don't offer any short-term disability programs. 2 years ago, I was, against my better judgment, I was racing my son up and down the driveway. My son's an athlete. He plays for his middle school basketball team. He's a good kid. He's the opposite of his father. I got a little bit of baby fat still on me. I won the first race because I cheated. I lost the second race. On the 3rd go-round, my left hamstring said, you know what? We're done with these games. I then met the driveway with force as I fell. Luckily, I was fine. I skidded my knee. I didn't rip my pants somehow. Long story short, I knew better and I was hurt. It hurt to move, it hurt to sit down on any kind of chair. But I wasn't going to lose my life and I wasn't going to be out of work for a year. As embarrassed as I was, as much as I was in pain, that wasn't a disabling condition regarding Social Security. So whatever the conditions a person has, it has to be expected to last at least a year for them to be eligible for Social Security, disability, or SSI benefits. Well, Brandon, what do you mean by substantial level of work? This year, we consider substantial gainful activity to be $1,350 gross per month, unless you are blind, and then if you're blind, substantial gainful work is $2,260. That is also on the update page. It is towards the bottom of the first page where it says substantial gainful activity non-blind $1,350, substantial gainful activity blind $2,260. So you may say, well, what do these numbers really matter? Because Social Security disability or SSI, there's always going to be the medical and the non-medical criteria. Let's say you're working and you're making $3,000 a month. and you're not blind. Well, substantial gainful activity is $1,350. Now, it's possible that there could be some deductions to that $3,000. Maybe you have to pay for what we call impairment-related work expense. Maybe you have items that you have to pay for out of your pocket that your job doesn't reimburse you for to be able to do the job. So maybe you have to pay for modifications to your computer or special transportation. We could take that into consideration regarding your wages. But let's say that isn't the case. Let's say anything that you need for your job is provided for you. That $3,000 is legitimately $3,000. You're over the limit. And it's going to be denied. Period. There's no sort of way to get around that. You don't meet the non-medical criteria. Your wages are too high to potentially be eligible. We'll take the application, but we're not going to get into your medical situation. There's no need to in that case because you are so far above the limit.
Do you want questions now or at the end?
No, I don't want people to get too far.
Okay. So, when does a parent's income not count towards a disabled child when they're applying for benefits?
SSI 18.
After the age of 18, they don't take into consideration the parent's income.
Correct.
Okay. And if for some reason they do, then you appeal. And how does the appeal process work?
Well, we're going to talk about SSI, but as far as, I guess it depends on what you're appealing. Are we talking about a medical appeal or a non-medical?
A severely disabled person, they're being denied SSI on the grounds that their parents make too much and they are well over the age of 18. This is Circleville, Ohio. This is not around here.
Okay. I mean, if the person's clearly over 18, I don't see why. I mean, forget about federal employee. People are people, but in my mind, I'm having trouble sort of rationalizing why.
She's been denied several times. She's severely disabled.
And these are not medical. This is because of the parent's income.
That's what they're being told. She's being denied Social Security, SSI.
I don't know. I don't know. Because here's the thing, what happens. I must talk about SSI. SSI, federal needs-based program, for people with blind, disabled, old age 65, limited income, limited resources. When it comes to Social Security disability, person could be getting $1,100, $1,200, some person could be getting close to $3,000. It depends on how much they've worked and paid into the system. But SSI, it pays no more than $841 this year or $1,261 as a couple. But since it's needs-based, we look at your income and resources. And to your first question, yes, when a child is under the age of 18, the income and resources of the parents count. Once the child turns 18, the parent's income no longer counts. That doesn't automatically guarantee that the child will be eligible for a full SSI check, because SSI, being a needs-based program, does look at something called living arrangements. Where are you living? Are you contributing to your household?
In-kind support, correct.
Right. So a child who isn't contributing to the support wouldn't get the full check, but they'd still be eligible. Like I said, in my mind, and I like the James Bond movie that came out with Sean Connery in '83, never say never again. I can't think of why we would deny somebody.
But over the age of 18, then you...
18. My guess is it may not be quite that simple, but when you get the denial, there should be, you have 60 to 65 days from the date of the denial to file an appeal. If we're denying you because of income and resources, I guess we would want proof of what the actual amounts are. Because with SSI, we would, if it's a denial of that nature, we are putting something into the system. We are using some information. So I'm not curious for myself because I'm not a claims representative. But I'm just wondering.
I can tell you the rest of the story off the camera.
Let's let it be another day. Okay, I'm curious. How old is the child?
The child is now 24 or 25. Cerebral palsy, I believe. They're saying that their mother's house payment is too high. I believe that was. Can you see if you can pull up Jan's comment? Okay, that's what they're saying. Because the in-kind support, she would pay per the house payment with the in-kind support and break it down, and how they want to do the 4 people in the house and break it down, that because the house payment would be way too high for her daughter to ever pay, that there is too much income support for her child to qualify for SSI.
That's not.
Now, and from my research, okay, I can charge my child rent, make him his own entity. His room is now his own home. He is no longer a part of my household. My income has no bearing at all on what he gets and what he does not get.
I offer no suggestion how what arrangement a person should make with their child, but you mentioned in-kind support and maintenance. We call it ISM. Basically, we are assigning a value to the assistance that you're getting by living rent-free, but it lowers your check. It doesn't stop your eligibility. Now, mind you, I'm not a technician, and if something new happened that I'm not aware of, I would.
So what steps should they take? Should they go ahead and hire a Social Security and
I can't.
You can't suggest anything for her?
I mean, I can't in good faith tell someone to pay money for an attorney that may or may not get a result. Like in here in Ohio, the only attorneys that I would ever recommend are to contact the Legal Aid Society.
Okay.
You know, I also don't want to give faith to say, just contact your congressional rep. I don't know enough to give a good answer. I would file an appeal and ask, not to be jerk, can you show me the policy that indicates?
Show you the rule.
Because
That's our big saying in our world, is show me the rule. Yeah.
You should. So back to SSI. So the way SSI works is, unlike Social Security benefits, when you work, you pay to the system, SSI benefits come from the General Treasury Fund. So a person does not have to have these credits to be eligible for SSI. You don't have to have a work history at all to qualify for SSI because it is a needs-based program. But because it is a needs-based program, we're going to ask you more questions about your income and resources. And I know you have more questions, but I just want to get this point out. Social Security benefits, retirement, survivor, spousal, disability. We don't care about your spouse's income, your investments, the value of your home, the number of homes you have, the value of your car. It's not because it's a non-factor, because those are not needs-based programs. But SSI, once again, in the booklet that's brown, yes, SSI, being a needs-based program, that's on the page, it will ask you about your income and resources. So if you're on the SSI book, pages 3 and 4 will kind of go over, the basics of resources and other rules that you have to meet. So SSI does care about your income, your resources, the income and resources of your spouse if they're living with you, stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, mutual funds. If you have more than one house, if you have more than one car, the value of those assets, the value of that property can affect your eligibility on the SSI program, because SSI is a needs-based program. For children, yes, the parent's income counts until they turn 18. I've seen a lot of parents who will get the ball rolling at 17 and 11 months old to apply for their child to be eligible for SSI. The child may have always been disabled, but the parents, either they applied, they found out, or they just were fully aware, hey, we're just making too much money. And I know that, if I apply when the child is 7, 14, 17, they still keep running into the same, denial. Because once again, the child's income, the parent's income does count when the child turns 18, and the parent's income might be limits. How much that limit is, that's not a number I can keep memorized, because it's going to depend on how many parents are in the household, how many children are in the household, and there's earned and earned income. So, once again, I barely know, where my car is parked. I can't remember all those amounts, but it is sort of a sliding scale depending on your age, not the age, number of kids in the household, and whatnot. With SSI, what do we not care about? And that's going back to, page 3. Your home that you live in, one car, money's been set aside for your burial, like life insurance policies up to like $1,500, it's a non-issue. So, I'm born and raised in Cleveland, so I know the ritzier parts of that area more than I do Portage County. So if you're familiar with Cuyahoga County, Pepper Pike, Gates Mills, Moreland Hills, South Russell, very nice. My primary care physician is out in Chagrin Falls. The main reason why that one, he's a great doctor too. My blood pressure always goes down driving through the idyllic homes of Chagrin Falls. My weight doesn't go down, but my blood pressure does. It doesn't matter if you live out there, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 home. Doesn't matter what your car is. Hyundai, Kia, Tesla, Maybach. If it's your one car, your one house, SSI doesn't care. But if you have more of a question?
Yeah, when did that come into effect? Because my daughter's not on SSI because she was when she was a baby. And when I got married, they took her off of it because my husband's car was paid off. And they told me to reapply when she turned 18. He made $19,000 that year. That was our total combined income. And we were over assets. So that's my question is, this is saying your car shouldn't count, but ours did, and it was just a Hyundai Elantra. So she's gone on top SSI like this whole time. So that's my question.
It's been the rule since I've been there.
That is
Back here.
crazy. Okay, so should we just like reapply for her? She's like 17 now. She's gonna be 18 next year. Should I wait till she turns 18, or is it okay to apply at 17 and a half?
I don't know you guys' income. It's none of everyone's business.
No.
But
We make more than that now, which is what we usually do.
okay.
Okay.
So we have a little phrase, when in doubt, fill it out.
Okay.
So you can, but do understand that until she turns 18, whatever you guys are making is going to count towards your eligibility.
Okay.
I'll also say this, in fairness to anybody, I don't know what the conversation was that you had with somebody else. I don't know the context of it. I wasn't there. Lord, I don't remember everything that you guys have said to me today. And I'm not saying you don't.
No.
But what I'll say is, I think sometimes we talk at each other instead of talking to each other. Like I said, I've never heard anything regarding car being paid off or not. I just know that for my entire career, if you just had one car, doesn't matter what that car is worth. This is a non-issue. So when people have multiple cars, we would usually try to exclude the cost of the most expensive car. Now, if you had 2 cars, 3 cars, paid off or not, the blue book values of the cars are going to count as a resource.
Oh, okay. That could be it, because we did have
That
one.
one car.
So that could be.
SSI is also going to care about, if you get married, because let's say I'm single and I'm on SSI, I decide to jump the broom. Income of my spouse. It's a classic case, what's mine is hers, what's hers is mine. I may not have a dime to my name. Well, let's say my wife has $8,000 in the bank. It's going to make me ineligible for SSI. But Brandon, that $8,000 is going to be allocated to our new roof that's going to be paid in 12 days. It doesn't matter. SSI looks at the current reality. You got the money now? You're ineligible. So that's something. When it comes to these benefits, we're not getting into your debt. We're not gonna. How much is your, how much is your car worth? Car note? How much is your cable worth? Are you paying too much for your cell phone bill? We don't get it. We don't get into that road. We just see what you have and apply that to our rules. So SSI is the only benefit we have that technically pays disabled minor children. Because there are low birth rate infants, grade school age children, kids in high school that are potentially eligible for SSI. Now, in those cases, it might be a single parent household where the parents are just under the income resource limits. But technically, a minor child who's disabled doesn't get Social Security benefits. They could get benefits off the record of a parent who is deceased, receiving retirement benefits, receiving disability benefits. But if Tom is 50, still working, making $105,000, Tom has a disabled 10-year-old. The 10-year-old might be eligible for money for a while. Tom's still alive. Tom ain't on disability. He's making too much. Tom's too young for retirement benefits. So that cuts off, like the Browns, hopefully winning the Super Bowl, the defensive stand. I'm not allowed to do it with my hands. They're not eligible. Please.
Thank you so much for answering that. And I was just wondering how that all works, but I think what you're telling me, because we have these cards, that, I want to know, if somebody is going to Medicaid waiver, and that means the person who's on Medicaid is receiving long-term care Medicaid because they are, like, able to be an institution level of care, would that person qualify for SSI under 18, or does that not go, like, do they not count?
I have to check. I don't know.
Okay, that's just a question.
In my mind, I'm still thinking, well, then, okay, where's the child living in this situation?
With parents?
Parents' income still counts towards eligibility. All right, you walk. Please.
Different scenario. I have my grandson. Right now, we are in foster care type situation. Looking to gain custody. At this point, is he eligible, or would our income count?
Is he collecting benefits?
Nothing right now.
How old is he again?
3,
Is he disabled?
yes.
Okay. With the child, they're not, so you're not the parents now.
Correct.
But if you became parents, if you adopted, you're looking at adopting.
In the future, yes.
Adopted parent is a parent.
Right.
And income resource of parent counts towards child SSI eligibility until child turns 18.
Okay. But in the current situation where
Should be okay.
today we have guardianship, and that is all.
Okay.
We are looking to obtain custody. Mom has already signed everything she needs to sign
Apply.
today.
You should apply. It was just a decision on who, we would want to see the paperwork that indicates why you're the proper applicant for a child. And we would, and I haven't gotten into what we need, but when you apply for benefits, we need names of doctors, hospitals, clinics, medicines,
Easy
medications.
enough to come up with.
Because once again, treat us like a blank slate. I know there's a running joke I usually say, people say, well, isn't that information in the computer? It is, but it's not in our computer. So,
I just want to ask a question. My daughter was injured when she was 9 months, and she's wheelchair bound and non-verbal. And when my husband and I went to apply for Social Security because she was injured and disabled for life, they denied her Social Security because of, once again, being her parent, they said we made too much money, we would have to wait till she turned 18. So now that she's 18, she's now getting SSI, but she couldn't get anything before that time. So, so that's why when she asked that question, I'm like, sort of curious, like, how do you get it when they're young and underage, under 18? And the next question, so that was something I just wanted to put out there, because I experienced that. But the next thing is, can a person who received SSI get married? If they got married, how will they lose SSI if they're disabled? They're 18 years of age, they're disabled, has a disability, but if they got married, will they lose their SSI? That's somebody else.
income of the new spouse is going to could potentially affect their benefits,
Okay.
yes. I don't like giving definitive yes, no answers, because I don't know the scenario, because it could be a situation where a person's getting married to someone who is also on SSI. Now, if that's the case, they would lose money, because there's a couples rate with SSI. SSI pays $841 to an individual, but if two people that are getting SSI get married, the couples rate is $1261.
A month?
So, yes. So it's more money that they're getting as an individual, but it's less money that they would get combined. But let's say I'm getting $841, I'm on SSI, and I get married, and my spouse is not disabled, and he, she, they are working full time. Well, their income counts towards my eligibility, so that could stop my check. Look, I just want to sort of say this. Once it goes back to the pros and the cons of any decision that you make. I'm not saying you guys are doing this, but I've talked to enough people, I've been with the agency long enough, that people will fall into this trap of saying, Social Security doesn't want me to get married. Social Security doesn't want me to work. It's not an issue with Social Security. You know, it's not that we don't care what decision you make, but just understand that yes, if you're on SSI, the income, I mean, the same thing, what if I'm on SSI and I go to, not advocating gambling, but let's just say I think you take a bus trip. We can't usually take a bus trip, it's still out of time, but you take a bus trip out to Erie, PA or Detroit. Remember, I'm on SSI, but life's short, I still want to have some fun. Oh, $20. Oh my gosh, I hit the progressive for $10,000.
Okay, wow.
Because you can only have, when SSI, you can have no more than $2,000 in resources, or $3,000 if you're married and your spouse living with you. So you get that $10,000, that's fine, but until you drop below the resource limit, your SSI is going to stop. You got to report it, because what happens is, with that kind of money, you're going to get it. It's going to be a 1099, you're probably got to file taxes. So we're going to get an alert, so we're going to find out anyway. And if we find out after the fact, then we're going to be overpaid. Because how many months did you get a check when you were over the resource limit? And I just maybe, what I'm telling you is what, we usually talk about it, but I know when you apply for benefits, it's a lot to absorb, but you've got to be aware of the reporting responsibilities when you start collecting benefits. It isn't the case of I'm going to collect a check and I'm just going to move. No, you need to let us know. You move, you change banks, you leave the country. Like if you're on SSI, you're out of the country for like a full calendar month, lose 30 days, you're not going to be eligible for that every month. So let's say a person went on a cruise on July 31st to Turks and Caicos. And they were gone until October 5th. You weren't eligible for that August payment, you weren't eligible for that September payment. It's up to you to report that kind of stuff. You know, if you get married or your marital status changes, or if you're married and all of a sudden your spouse gets a new job, your spouse goes from an administrative assistant position to a C-suite executive with their own private bathroom. I want you to let us know. Because with SSI, there are going to be periodic reviews, and if we find out during that review that your spouse got a new job 18 months ago, you're potentially overpaid for that period of time. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but I want to be tactfully honest. With SSI, there's more stuff that you have to report because it is a needs-based program.
So, getting too much SSI. Say I travel overseas and I'm gone 31 days. On that 31st day, I can no longer collect my Social Security, correct? Because I'm out of the country. So when you come back to the country, say I've been gone for 60 days, do I have to reapply or what happens? And how do you know I'm out of the country?
You probably don't.
Okay.
But-
That's my question. No, I thought that was a strange rule when I read it, that if you leave the United States for more than 30 days, you lose your Social Security, something that we have paid into it. And then you got this COVID where I have a friend's died that hasn't been home in 2 years because she's locked in Australia.
Okay, let me pull that.
So-
Let me pull that. There's Social Security and then there's SSI. There are plenty of expatriates living abroad receiving their Social Security check.
Okay, so you can get Social Security, you just can't get SSI.
But SSI being a needs-based program, the rules are
Okay,
different.
because what I read was you could not collect Social Security if you were out, okay.
I mean, I've talked to people who are living in Belize, Italy,
Okay, yeah.
who are getting
That's not
benefits.
what I had read.
Does he want to move back to Parma? No, he's happy in Belize.
Okay, my son was saying he's getting SSI now. So if I decide to retire someday, I mean, will he continue to get SSI, or is there a different benefit that he
He
needs?
potentially, was he disabled before the age of 22?
Yeah.
He'd potentially be eligible for disabled adult child benefits on your record because you'd be on Social Security or no longer with us, hopefully many decades from now. You have a child that was disabled before the age of 22, so he would potentially be eligible for Social Security benefits on your record. And then what he could receive from your record is greater than what he's getting on SSI. The SSI would stop.
I guess that was stopping when it goes to this other
So
benefit.
yes, Social Security benefits based on your work record.
So,
Auxiliary benefits, payments based on your work record.
The other thing is, he's in this shelter, well, he's in a workshop, he makes a little bit of money, and every time he makes a little bit of money, they send us a letter saying they're reducing his benefit down from 841 to some, small amount. So it's like, they know when he makes a little bit of money, they know about that, like,
Well, wages are easy. We have systems to be able to tell with someone's disability, but it's not quick in most instances, and we don't know what your spouse is making. So like if a person gets married, our records aren't built to track the wages of your spouse. But to your point, yes, since SSI is a needs-based program, if you decide to work, all right, so here's how it works when you're on SSI. It's the wrong time. So with SSI, once again, that needs-based program, we want to know about your earned and or earned income. For SSI, there's a $20 general exclusion. There's also a $65 earned income exclusion. So, if a person is working and has earned wages on SSI, SSI will not count the first $85 gross per month that person makes. After that $85, we would count half of it when it comes to SSI. So here's how that would, you know what, I'm just gonna stick to one color. Drop this over. All right, so let's say you got my boy Tom. All right, Tom is working. I used to be a teacher, so I was a computer teacher, so I wasn't used to writing. Anyway, so let's say Tom is potentially eligible for $841 from SSI. Tom gets a job where per month gross, he's making $1,085. Remember, there's an $85 exclusion when it comes to earned income. So of that $85, we're only looking at $1,000. And remember, the way the earned income exclusion works is, for what you make over $85, we count half of it. So of that $1,000, we're only counting $500. So $500 would be subtracted from the $841. So in this example, Tom would be getting potentially an SSI check of $341 and getting a gross check, gross wages of $1,085. SSI income affects SSI 2 months into the future as well. So what you make in January is going to affect your March check. What you make in June is going to affect your August check when it comes to SSI. That's earned income. What if it's unearned income? What if it's a pension, workers' compensation, something like that? Then we don't count the first $20 of unearned income, but after that it's a dollar for dollar reduction. So if Tom is getting a pension check of $1,085, we would count $1,065 of that, and that would be too much to collect SSI. So this is why once again, we have these conversations with family and friends, but they're never fully fleshed out because none of us really know what we're talking about in a lot of instances. Wait a minute, look at my cousin, my much younger sister over here. She's getting her check, but I'm not. Well, that's because her money is based on wages, so we count less of it, while mine is based on some other non-work source. So that's what probably happened, with your son. The wages affect the SSI. So when someone says, can I work and get SSI? You can, but no matter what you make, it's going to affect the check. And I understand these are needs-based programs that open up the door for other benefits. We're neutral. If you want to work, but make sure you are aware of the reporting responsibilities. It's your responsibility to report your wages. It's your responsibility to let us know when you start working or stop working. And this is on you, ma'am.
Can I ask you, what about if they do competitive employment, like if they're in vocational education, they just finished high school and they're going into a vocational program?
Okay, so.
But it's competitive employment, or it could be piecework. Does that affect their SSI?
Yes. Now, there is something called the student earned income exclusion.
Yes.
I don't know what that amount is on here. And it is $9,000. not. So I'll pull it up real quick. So the student earned income exclusion is something that's slightly different. I just hit it up too. If you're a student under the age of 22 in college, in school, we can count, you can make more money before it affects you. So let me just find the chart. I'm going old school here to my phone. If I lose my phone, I won't be able to get home. All right, so work info, I just have this PDF up. All right, here we go. And the amount, so this year's student income exclusion is on. Oh, here it is, yeah, it's, that's not it. We don't have it. I'll find it. Because when you're a student, you can make considerably more money and receive, oh, here it is. I got too much on here. All right, so it's $8,000. All right, so if you're a student on the age of 22 and on SSI, we can exclude up to $2,040 a month of your wages, up to a yearly amount this year of $8,230. So a student can make a lot more money before it affects their SSI. But if you're no longer a student, they're out of school, then you're back to the $85, and after that we count half, or just the $20 if you're, if you're not working at all. Reporting responsibilities are always going to be the applicant or his or her or their representative payee. There is a mobile wage reporting app for iOS or Android devices for SSI. So if you're on SSI, there's a mobile wage reporting app that you can download in order to report your wages. There's a My Wage reporting tool on my Social Security account where a person that's on SSI or Social Security disability can report their wages. Now, what about disability? What if I'm on disability? I'm not on SSI. I'm getting a check on the 3rd of the month or later on. Can I work and get Social Security disability? You can. The work rules are a little bit different.
Makes sense.
I'm going to gloss over because it's a lot to sort of swallow. Because with SSI, because it's a needs-based program, your income will affect the amount of the check. It doesn't work like that with Social Security disability. With Social Security disability, it's much more of an all or nothing proposition. Either you're eligible for that full check or you're eligible for nothing. Social Security disability, because it is not a needs-based program, doesn't sort of do that sort of sliding scale. So if you're on Social Security disability and you make $1,000 or $2,000 a month, is that going to affect the amount of the check? No, it is not. It may affect your ability to collect that check, but will it not affect the amount of the check? So I want to jot this down real quick for you. All right, so we have.
Oh, dear. Is there something called SSD?
Social Security disability.
So that would be SSDI, right? I think she's asking me the wrong thing. Somebody just asked me a question.
Yeah, let me get it. With my children, okay, I'm gonna talk about my son. Well, like I said, I have a son and daughter. You guys have all changed diapers, and you know the different anatomies. It never really mattered with my daughter what brand of diaper was. My son, Huggy, no disrespect, Huggies never worked for him.
Loves.
Yes, I wanted Pampers, but Pampers were expensive. I mean, civil service. But when he was born, we made sure we grabbed some. So what I'm saying is, but in my mind, it's all Pampers. I know that it's a diaper, but Pampers. That doesn't really work with us. And I know people meld all this stuff together. Hey, I'm getting SSA, I'm getting SSI, I'm getting SS, I'm getting SSD. Let's just, I don't care what you call it, but make sure you clearly understand that there are two different programs. Most people call supplemental security income SSI. Like I'm talking to financial planners, and they'll say, yeah, my 70-year-old client is making $10,000 a month. They want their SSI. No, you mean their Social Security. So if you're going to say the words, if you're going to say SSI, please make sure that you are referring to our federal needs-based program. Call Social Security disability whatever you want, as long as you understand the difference between the two. So when someone says, is this something called SSD? Yes, it's Social Security Disability Benefits. God bless you. SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance. It's all the same. Disability, SSDI, SSDB, that's all the same thing. It is the work-based program for disability benefits. So, let's say you're working 10, 15, 20 years, you became unable to work, you're 40 years old, you're 50 years old, you applied for Social Security Disability Insurance. You're getting your benefits for 2 or 3 years, you get that itch to re-enter the workforce. Can you? Yeah. Here's what happens first. There's something called the trial work period. It's 9 months over what we call a rolling 60-month period of time, 5 years, in which you can work and earn whatever you want to, and it will not affect your Social Security check. It only counts as a trial work period month this year if you make at least $970. So if you make $950, it ain't even a trial work period month. I know this is a lot of an abstract concept, so let me make it real simple. Let's say you've been on SSDI for 2 or 3 years. All right, you collected your check, and you were talking to a friend over the holiday season last year, and they said, hey, look, there's an opportunity. You're really into this such and such field. Why don't you come work for us? All right. We're going to pay you $4,000 a month. The brand new world, computers and holograms and TikTok. You can do whatever you want to on your smartphone. So you get this job making $4,000. You're on Social Security disability. You are now entered your trial work period. Make whatever you want to and collect a check. As long as it's over 970, it counts. So let's say no matter what your situation is, it doesn't preclude you from being able to work this job. You're making $4,000 every month. January through September, those 9 straight months, that is your trial work period. Right? You've kept your benefit. No matter what your Social Security check is, you've kept your eligibility for your check. You are good to go. Our anniversary is in October, plus I'm a really big fan of John Carpenter's 1965 classic Halloween. I just like the music of Michael Myers. I think it's better than Jason. Anyway, so what happens in October going forward? Trial work period was 9 months, let's say it was January to September. As of October, you have now entered the 36-month extended period of eligibility, which means for the next 3 years, if you make more than a substantial amount for a month, you're not eligible for a check for that month. If you make under that substantial limit, you're eligible for a check for that month. So for the next 3 years, if this person's making $4,000, she's not getting a check, if he's not getting a check, well, let's say there's a month that they take off and they don't make anything, if they drop below this $1,350, they're eligible for a check. After the 36 months have gone by, any month in which you make a substantial limit, at that point your check's going to stop. It would terminate. Why do you go over this? What I'm telling you is, people think, I go to work on Monday, Social Security finds out on Tuesday, they stop my check on Wednesday. Doesn't work like that. In this situation, you had the 9 months to make whatever you want to, and you had 3 years if you drop below our substantial limit to be eligible for a check. So when someone says, can I be on disability at work? Yes. But with Social Security disability, it's going to affect your ability to collect the check. It is not going to affect how much that check is. And mind you, once again, this is because you have to report your wages and kind of understand that certain thresholds are going to potentially impact, your check. It's up to you to report it. We need a title. Like, we really want you to report your raises within 10 days at the end of the month. Because once again, the longer you take to get that information to us, the longer we potentially have incorrect information, the more likely there is to be a possibility of you being over or maybe even underpaid. Because think about it, with SSI, if you're on SSI and you're reporting your wages and you lost your job, we don't immediately know. So you want to report that as soon as possible so that we don't have incorrect, inaccurate information that could potentially be detrimental to the amount of your check. It's a partnership to a certain extent. You know, it's like dancing. Both partners got to be moving in rhythm for everybody to have a good time. Everyone expects us to be friends fair, but, you know, we need you to be all that dual. Question?
Well, I mean, as the rep payee, I mean, I've never reported his income, but they know about it all the time already anyway, because they always send us letters saying, you know, he made this much, and so we're reducing his benefit by this much. So.
There's some situations we have something called a work member. Some employers would get it automatically, but I just like to tell people in the overarching situation to be always prepared to prove situations to us.
Okay. And the time example there, that affected his benefit for 2 months, you're saying? So like, let's say for next month he didn't make as much for some reason.
No, but SSI income affects the check 2 months into the future. So what you make this month is going to affect 2 months in the future.
So
I didn't say it's not going to affect the next 2 checks. It's going to affect the check you're going to get in 2 months.
okay, so he could,
Whatever he makes in July is going to affect when he gets in September.
okay, but if he makes less money in September,
That's going to affect the check that he gets in November.
he could lose money that way. Because he makes a lot one month and makes significantly less the next month, then his check, his SSI check will be reduced based on a larger amount than he made.
Waste too much information.
You know, and he makes $2,000 one month, like in the example, he made $1,085, and let's say the next month he only makes, I don't know, 400 or something. His check will be reduced by that amount for 2 months. You know?
Hold back, come with me. What you make this month on SSI in July affects the check you get in September. It affects the check 2 months into the future. It doesn't affect the next 2 checks. It affects the check that you get in 2 months. So yes, there is a certain level of fluctuation in the SSI checks when a person's working, or their spouse is working, or their parents are working. I've seen people whose checks kind of go. For example, most of them, a lot of people are not paid the first and 15 and 30. They're paid every 2 weeks. Well, there's 52 weeks in a year, so there's 26 pay periods for a lot of people. And every once in a while, there's that wonderful 3-payment month. And you usually don't pay the mortgage out of one of those payments. That's your play money. Well, I had this case when I was in Middleburg Heights as a claims rep. Guy was working, mom wasn't working, dad was, 2 children, they're all on SSI. In most cases, dad's income was under the limit. They were fine. But every once in a while, he would get 3 payments in a month. That month would make the daughters ineligible for the payment paid 2 months later. There's certain fluctuations in when you're on SSI, there's going to be fluctuations if you decide to work. Period. I'm rambling. Period.
So let's say I decide to retire. Let's say in a theoretical example where the person passes away and let's say he had never applied for Social Security, would his survivors be able to apply based on his record?
Yeah, assuming he worked and paid Social Security, assuming that the survivors are old enough or disabled, assuming they meet the criteria, yes. If you're gone, then you don't have to have applied before you leave. So, I mean, I'm hoping I see tomorrow, but if I don't, my kids are going to be eligible for benefits on my record. Yeah, you don't have to apply for benefits for your loved ones to potentially be eligible as a surviving spouse. They got to apply, and they have to meet the criteria. Once again, if you're no longer with us, The children have to be under the age of 18, 19, still in high school, or disabled before turning 22. But yet they're eligible. Same thing with a surviving spouse. Surviving spouse could be eligible if they are 60, 50, and disabled, or they have children that are under the age of 16, or children that are disabled before turning 22. It's insurance. Period. It is a federal insurance program. You gotta meet the criteria for the insurance to potentially receive the payment. I'm assuming we all have car insurance. Please don't raise your hand, I don't wanna know. But let's say you have your insurance through the end of the month and you don't pay. August 15th goes by and you're riding out to Cedar Point. No, forget that. You're riding to the airport and you do 1 mile per hour over the limit in the 15 seconds you're driving through Glendale. Whoop, whoop. Oh, shit, I didn't stop. Oh, pull up the side. License and registration. I don't have insurance. Or, insurance. You're gonna get a ticket. They don't care if you used to be insured. Are you insured and when you get stopped? That's sort of the rules of how it works. Same thing with Social Security benefits. So when it comes to SSDI, you need to have worked and paid into the system. Well, how long do I need to work? It usually depends on how old you are. So if you are 30 years old and older, when you apply for SSDI, in most cases you need to have worked and paid into the system for at least 5 out of the last 10 years before you became disabled. That's what makes you insured for the benefits. Go back 10 years before I became disabled. Did I work and pay into the system for at least 5 of those 10? If so, I'm potentially insured for the Social Security Disability Insurance payment. But what if I stopped working in the year 2000 but didn't become disabled until 2022? Then you don't meet the criteria for Social Security Disability Insurance because you didn't have work 5 out of the last 10 years. What if I worked all in the 80s and the 90s? That's great. You don't meet the requirements for Social Security Disability. Because with retirement benefits, it's do you have the 10 years over 40 credits? Doesn't matter when you got it. But disability benefits are meant to be replacing relatively recent wages. So with retirement benefits, it's do you have enough work? With Social Security Disability, it's do you have enough work in a recent enough time frame? For people that are younger than, well, actually it's not 30, I'm sorry. Early 30s. If you're younger than this, actually it is 30. It's 30. I doubted myself. I need to get some of those cupcakes in my system. If you're younger than 30, 31, you need to have been working and paying the system for 1/2 the years since you were 21. I'm clear. So let's say you're 27 years old when you become disabled. Well, that's 6 years since you were 21. Have you been working paying the system for at least 3 out of those 6 years? Then if you're 24 years or younger, when you apply for SSDI, have you been working and paying the system for at least 18 months out of the most recent 36-month period? So you could be a relatively young worker who hasn't been in the workforce for very long and still potentially be eligible for SSDI benefits. So what's so special about this benefit? Well, number one, it can pay benefits potentially to your spouse. That is your current and potentially ex. You can pay your children benefits. Versus with SSI, it is only paying you off of your record. If you're on SSI, your spouse, your ex-spouse, your children are not getting a payment. The only way they would get a payment is if they also qualify for SSI on their own. So, Tom on SSI has 3 kids. How much do they get? You get no more than $841. Oh, God. Those kids don't get anything. They're not eligible. They're not disabled. If Tom is getting, I don't know, $1,000 from, oh, thank you, sir. You're very kind. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Thank you.
But if Tom's getting $1,000, you may say 841, 1,000. That ain't a big difference. It isn't a big difference. But since it's SSDI, this opens up the door of eligibility for the children and the spouse and the ex-spouse. So that's just something to consider. If you're applying for benefits, I don't want someone to inadvertently assume that the kids are going to get benefits. Yes.
I have a question. It's not about SSDI, but about Social Security. Let's say my husband retires at full retirement age. Well, let's say he retires at 68.
Okay.
And I will be 60 about at that time. And we have a son who has a disability, and he does SSI. Is there a formula, what my social security would be based on his record? And the fact that our son has a disability.
As far as a child, I'll repeat the question.
Might be applied,
Okay. In this situation, everyone's alive. In a life case, meaning the parent is still alive, the most the child can receive is 50% of the parent's full retirement age amount. In the situation of a death case where the parent is no longer alive, the child can get up to 75% of the parent's full retirement age amount. It could be less, but it won't be more. I'm not asking the person, are you eligible for Social Security on your own work record? Have you worked and paid into Social Security on your own?
No.
Okay. Are you now, or will you ever get benefits from a job in which you didn't pay into Social Security? You work for city, county, state, public library, public hospital, public school?
No.
Alright, so if you're not eligible for benefits from a job in which you didn't pay into Social Security, and if you're not eligible for benefits on your own work record, then since you would have, no matter how old you are, if you had a child that was disabled before turning 22, you could potentially be eligible for spousal benefits. The benefit would be up to 50% of the worker's full retirement age amount.
So I don't have to be, full retirement age?
No, because you have a child that's under the age of 16 or a child that's disabled before turning 22. Because since that's the reason why you'd be getting benefits at the age of 60,
Okay.
you don't have to be, there's no age limit as long, so parents of age, minor child under the age of 16 or disabled adult child that's eligible on that record doesn't have to be of a certain age to qualify for payments.
But my son also has a waiver.
Probably, I can't, any non-social security benefits I can't answer. I don't know much of anything about the waiver program or Medicaid, but my guess is, I don't care what you make. But let's just, no matter what your son's eligible for on your record, it's gonna lower the SSI. Overall, he may be getting more money, but he's gonna be getting, because let's say he's only eligible for $200 from your record. Well, that's gonna lower the amount of the SSI. And assuming that he's eligible for more than $841 from your record, or $800, that's gonna just stop the SSI. I don't know what the trickle effect of that's gonna be.
Yeah, because now he's getting SSI, right then.
Right, but then also, and I see your hand, one of the other issues you gotta understand is, when you're on SSI, you have to apply for any and all other Social Security benefits you may qualify for. So I've talked to people who may say, I'm getting SSI, this is what happens. Person worked long enough to be eligible for retirement benefits, but not disability. So you worked for 25, 30 years, you stopped working for 10, 15 years, you started to get SSI. You're 60 years old, you're getting your SSI. Well, we know that at 62, you're eligible for your retirement benefits. You have to apply for the retirement benefit. That's one of the rules of being on SSI. You have to apply for any and all benefits that we offer. If you don't apply, we're going to maybe stop or lower your SSI. So it's almost an unavoidable thing when you apply for benefits, assuming your son becomes, this is a son, right? Assuming the son becomes eligible, it's going to affect his SSI. It could stop the SSI. I don't know what other benefits it would impact, though. I'm not the person to ask.
question is, my son gets SSI and survivor benefits off of his father. Now, I just retired about 2 years ago, and I did get a letter from Social Security saying that I should reapply for him because he may be eligible for more money. Is this what it's talking about, the SSDI?
Okay, your son gets 2 checks a month currently from us?
He does.
Maybe they're just, did you recently start your benefits?
I did.
What they're basically wondering, they want to see if he may be eligible for any additional monies on your record. He may not be, but we at least like to explore that possibility.
So I should fill out that application and...
Give us a call, yeah. I mean, worst case scenario, he's not eligible for more money at all, and it's a non-issue.
Okay.
So he does get a check on the first, and he gets a check on the third of the month.
He gets them both about the third of the month, but yes.
Okay.
Can you explain that to me one more time, what you were sharing with the young lady up front, about if you have a child that receives SSI before the age of 21 due to an injury, how does a parent get the SSDI?
No.
I'm confused.
Okay. All right. For a child to be eligible for benefits on the record of a parent, that parent would need to be receiving retirement benefits, Social Security disability benefits, or have passed away. The child would have to be unmarried in most cases and under the age of 18. 19 years old is still a full-time student in high school, or the child has to have a disability that started before that child turned 22. The child doesn't have to be on SSI. The child could be 40 years old, but did that disability start before turning 22? And that's one of the black or white issues.
Yeah.
You might have a child that was disabled at the age of 23 and they're not eligible on your record and never will be because the disability started after they turned 22. As a spouse, for me, for you to be eligible for benefits in the record of your spouse's record, you as the applicant would need to be at least 62, unless you have children that are under the age of 16, or children that were disabled, not necessarily receiving benefits, but disabled before they turned 22. So the fact that the child is on SSI is really a non-issue for that example. They just have to have a disability that started before turning 22. If that's the case, now mind you, let's say you got, my go-to example is Dave and Jane. So let's say Jane is the primary breadwinner, Dave was a stay-at-home father, they have a disabled 26-year-old. Well, in order to pay that child and to pay Dave, who's only 50, we got to make a medical determination of the child. If the medical determination is a denial, they're not getting paid. Only the worker would get paid. But if that child is found to be disabled through the Social Security Administration, you're applying for benefits, the child will be eligible because they have a disability that's starting before they turn 22, regardless of how old they are now. And Dave, that parent, younger than 62, because they have a child that's under the age that was disabled before turning 22, Dave is potentially going to be eligible for spousal benefits, not example. Spouse, ex-spouse, surviving spouse. It's a lot to digest. I would fully admit. You know, I would say I cannot give you the top 10 things you need to know, the top 5 mistakes. That's not how my brain works. But you've got to know your stuff. Your Social Security number, your marital history, person's name, their Social Security number, their date of birth, where the marriage, when the marriage ended. Now, mind you, if you were married 3 times, each marriage for 4 years, that's a non-issue. But if you were married and divorced and it was at least 10 years, we want to know about it. We got to go down memory lane because there may be benefit eligibility for you on that person's record, or maybe that person on your record.
What if you were married to the same person twice, with one person in between?
Oh, my Lord.
No, I'm dead serious, right?
I guess, okay, in this situation now, are you still married or not?
Yes.
Okay, so Remember, if you are currently married, you can't be eligible for benefits on the record. Anyone else that's still alive, period. If you're trying to apply on the record someone that's no longer alive, that current marriage had to take place after you turn 60 or 50 disabled. When I say you got to be married for at least 10 years, that's you need to be married to somebody for at least 10 consecutive years if the marriage ended because of divorce. So it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's say you got married to somebody and you were married to them from 2000 to 2007. You get divorced, you get remarried to them in 2009, and you're married to them until 2017. You're not eligible. Let's say you get this ended in divorce, this ended in divorce. You're not eligible on the record because you weren't married for 10 consecutive years. We're not adding up all the multiple marriages. Were you married for 10 consecutive years? If you weren't, you're not eligible for benefits. When you get remarried here, we're not adding this on because there was a gap here.
But if on the second one marriage, the guy dies, then she would be eligible?
Yeah, because you were married for at least 9 months before the person passed away.
I'm in my 10th year.
Are you in your 10th year? You're good. Okay. I'm telling her,
Yeah, you let go of the 10-year duration of marriage only applies if the marriage ended because of divorce. It's only months if it ended because of death. Please.
I have a question that has not been asked by anybody yet, that I'm guessing you're probably going to say I don't know. Okay, when a provider gets a parent gets, and I know you don't know about Medicaid waiver money, but that money is not taxable. But say that parent is on SSDI and gets a certain amount of money per month over that amount, whichever number up there that you pick. It would all be over that to keep the child at home and out of an institution. There's no tax liability because of 2014-7 through the IRS. So I asked a tax preparer, and since you get a 1099, there's no work credits at all. It goes towards 0 work credits. So you have a parent who's on disability. Their child is now over the age of 18, and they can start getting compensated, or whatever the word would be, to care for that adult child to keep them out of a nursing home. There's no taxes due on that money. Federal, state, local, FICA, Medicare, nothing. So what do you do then? And I cannot find, I've called Social Security, IRS.
If you don't pay into Social Security, you don't get Social
I
Security.
I don't know what you're asking. You took me around the world, but I don't know where we stopped.
See, parents get money
Okay.
for taking care of their disabled
We
child.
are paid to take care of our children, and it falls under a rule with the IRS called 2014-7, okay? We are non-taxable. It's the difficulty of care. So we don't pay into anything at all. We don't pay into Social Security, we don't pay FICA, we don't pay anything. So if we don't pay anything, then we can't recoup anything. Is that not correct?
It's insurance. If you didn't pay the Social Security, you're not
Yeah.
getting it.
Now, if you wanted to pay into it on the side, can you?
I have no idea.
I know, yeah. See,
That
that's,
feels like a self-employment issue.
We are considered self-employment.
I mean, I don't know. This is once again, the payment of taxes in this situation to work. That's really an IRS thing in my head. I don't know. I'm parsing over. It's not a Social Security issue.
even the IRS said, we don't know, talk to Social Security.
That doesn't
Yeah.
sound
But
right.
the tax preparer said that one key thing is you're not paying into the retirement work credit system, period. So that's not going to,
You're not paying FICA taxes.
yeah, you're not paying FICA,
If you're not paying FICA taxes, I mean,
it's not work, it's not work.
correct. It's not helping you regarding us.
Right, so we will be around.
But we're trying to do the right, some of us that are on disability, we don't want our children in a nursing home, which nobody would. It's like, we're trying to do the right thing, but it's such a complicated Rubik's Cube that you want to throw out the window.
So are you collecting disability?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know, so I tried to do the right thing, but it's such.
So if she's collecting disability, is her daughter eligible for her disability being disabled?
She's already been.
Oh, she's getting that?
We crossed that. I understand about the pass program, the ticket to work, the 3 years, the 9 months, the 5 years. I've been looking at this for a long time. But what I want to know is.
Like the thing is, Social Security doesn't determine who is eligible for Social Security. No. Usually it's whether your immigration status or DHS who decides it. So when the person says, hey, I'm here to apply for my Social Security card, we need some documentation. You have an I-9 form, you have a work agreement, and something like that. So this, in my brain, this doesn't feel like a Social Security question.
Well, the reason I ask is because the money's coming from Social Security for her and for myself. But the money from Medicaid, but when I asked a couple different tax professionals who know specifically about the IRS code, the one key thing is it going for work credits towards your Social Security number and Social Security? No, it's not. He said then there's no work credits.
That's right.
If you're not paying the FICA, then yeah, I mean, it's not going. I guess.
It's not right.
What are you trying to accomplish by paying taxes on this? To increase
Well,
the
we're
amount?
not. We're not. It's just when the tax returns get sent in, you have to put it in, and then on Schedule C, you have to pull it right back out with that 2014-7 exclusionary rule. Yeah, I know you did.
The question, what did she ask?
Yeah, what exactly what you want? You want more money for your daughter?
Yeah, do you want an investment for her so she can be survived?
No, I just don't want to get in trouble for receiving disability for myself.
I don't think you can because you're getting disability in your old work record, so
Yeah.
I don't think that has anything to do with the future.
I do want to ask another question about, if you're 62, you said you can pull down retirement at 62, not 67?
62, you take a reduction.
Okay, you can take a reduction. Can you take a reduction even if you no longer work? You have worked to put your years in, but now you're working for educational institution where you get PERS. Can you continue to get your PERS? I mean, work and get your Social Security?
Alright.
If you pull it down early?
That's what multiple conversations going simultaneously. So here's the thing. You gotta be at least 62 years old to be eligible for reduced retirement benefits.
Okay.
It is going to be less money if you take it at 62, but it's more checks overall. That's sort of the balance and scales of justice that you gotta sort of parse out when it comes to retirement. Do you want a smaller check sooner? You'll get more checks overall, but you will be locked into a lower rate. Versus, do you want to wait until you're older? You would get more money per check, but you're going to get fewer checks overall because you're close to the end of your life.
Bill more hours as you know.
But you can still work if I'm working the.
You can still work, but
And all that stuff.
there are still, you can work. There's still limits to how much you can work and earn. It's $19,560 if you're not at your full retirement age this year. Gross earned wages or net profits from self-employment. But since you brought up, if you are going to get benefits from a job in which you didn't pay the Social Security, so if you work for a city, county, state, those benefits can potentially affect the amount of your Social Security. And whenever you start to receive those benefits from that non-covered government entity, we need to know about it.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Kathy.
Sorry.
I want to roll right into the PRS because I have my full credits for Social Security. And I'm fully vested for PRS, although I'm not here close enough to retirement to collect.
I still want to ask.
What do I do in that case?
But you don't want to get in trouble.
Can I collect from both? And how should I go about doing that?
And I know this doesn't just affect me.
I can answer no question regarding what the process is of applying for a non-social security. I don't know what you gotta do to apply for your OPERS or SGRS. Right. Can you apply for Social Security? Yeah. If you meet the age requirement, you meet the work requirement, yes. But when you apply for Social Security, if you're receiving these governmental benefits from per OPERS and SGRS, you need to know about the amount. Because that can potentially affect how much you get from Social Security. So if you say, well, how do I apply for Social Security benefits? You can do it, I guess I feel like we're getting towards the end, so I'll say this now. You got 3 ways to apply for Social Security benefits. You can do it online on our website, socialsecurity.gov. You can apply online for retirement, spousal disability Medicare. You can also apply for SSI, but it's really limited. You got to be between the ages of 18 and 65. You can't have been married. You can't have applied before to apply for SSI online. You can also call us. I don't know the local office phone number off the top of my head.
That's okay, the number
But the
answer.
national toll-free number, which is available between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday,
Yep, see this?
is 1-800-772-1213. You can call and schedule a phone appointment to be able to, take care of your business that way. Our office is reopened to the public in like April 7th. You can go to the office Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. You do not need an appointment, but you have to wear a mask regardless of your vaccination status. If you don't have an appointment, there could be a wait because we can only have a certain number of people in the office. And we are asking that adults come to the office by themselves with no more than one other person. We just can't have a bunch of people in the office. So the days that I'm going to come with my friend and my colleague, that's over. But you can call us, you apply online. Yes, I don't know how you apply for Oprah. I can't.
Well, I mean, that was, I have a former coworker who's closer to retirement than I am. And he was saying, well, I'll just cash in my OPERS and then collect my Social Security.
We still consider that a benefit, we still consider it a pension.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you guys Sunday.
Because he still got the money, he just opted, people get caught, I know I actually, people get caught on the word pension, and they think, well, I worked for 20 years, I'm not gonna take a pension, I'm gonna take it out at once. You still got a pension, you just took it out in a different format. So if he thinks he's doing that to avoid Social Security, that's silly. If he's doing it because it's in his best interest and he needs that money now, go knock yourself out. But if he's fully vested and he's just pulling his money out instead of getting monthly distributions, we still care, we still count it, so.
Well, Brandy, can I ask you this? Once he or she turns 67, and they're at their maximum age of
A
Social
public
Security.
benefit is always would count regardless of your age.
Okay, but let me just finish this. I just recently read something, you can correct me on this, is that once you turn 67, after 67, because that's the retirement maximum, even for pension, that after 67, if I waited a year later, at 68, I can work any job and still get my Social Security. Is that correct?
As of the first day of the month, if you're full retirement age, whatever
I
that age
can't
may
bring
be,
it in, survey of
you
the
can work
salary.
it under whatever you want to and collect any of our age-based benefits. If you're on SSI, your wages still count because SSI is a needs-based
No,
program.
not, I'm talking about regular Social Security.
So yeah, you can work it out whenever you want to,
Got it.
after your full retirement age,
After you full, okay,
as of the first day of the month.
thank you.
Yeah, even.
So what if I don't collect on my OPERS until after I'm fully
You're
retired?
fully-
Then when you collect the OPERS, you need to call Social Security to give us an idea of how much you're getting. Because that could potentially affect what you are getting.
Even after
Even with
the age,
retirement?
Yes, public benefits could potentially affect your Social Security regardless of your age.
Quick question, okay, that, I need to answer. Person has had their grandchild their whole life. It was a guardianship. Child is now adult. Grandmother is now retired, collecting Social Security. Can that child collect on the grandmother's Social Security, or does the grandmother need to do a legal adoption of an adult adoption so that that child can get her Social Security benefits?
Are you talking about money?
How is the
Yeah.
child now?
No, no,
20?
no.
He's 24.
I'm a little fuzzy on the rules with grandparent benefits. I think both parents have to be deceased and disabled.
Okay, if they're not, but she has guardianship, could she just go do a legal adult adoption?
I can't suggest what you do, but if you are the parent, you're the parent. Either you're adopted parent or adopted parent.
I'm a grandparent.
Right, what I'm saying
But
is,
if you adopt, you're the parent.
for a grandchild to receive benefits, both parents have to be deceased or
For an
disabled.
adult adoption.
If you adopt a child, which I am no means suggesting, but if a person adopts a child, that is your child, and if that child meets the eligibility based on its disability, they're eligible for benefits. But a grandchild, if both parents are not deceased or disabled, is not eligible in the grandparents' record.
That makes it easy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can't hear. Take care. Next time I check out the flyer.
mean, if it's not gonna go towards the rest of Social Security, I don't know who cares. Or if it's not waiting for the
Basically, it's tax incentive
But where's the money coming from?
I know you want to know, but I
I don't think there's any way for you to survive a work benefit.
Turn this off. The first half hour of my phone is off.
The first half hour of it is going to be terrible.